Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. Ahead of the 2024 battle, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharamanji presenting the interim budget, or largely the vote on account. The NDA government making it very clear that for them, Rashtra comes first and not Rewdis. The government said their focus is on the poor, women, youth and farmers, something that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has outlined the 4 pillars for whom he is working so hard, him and his team. The government is working so hard. Also saying that the budget is for a Viksit Bharat by 2047. It's laying the foundations and perhaps staying on that path which will take Bharat into that level of a developed economy, a developed Bharat by 2047. While there's no change in the long-term, short-term capital gains tax, direct or indirect taxes, the government has set a fiscal target for 2024-2025 at 5.1% of the GDP, so down by about 0.7%, from 5.8% to 5.1%, and in the forthcoming years eventually bring it down to about 4.6%. That's very ambitious, and that's got a lot of corporate sector, the private sector, very pucked up and looking at that commitment. But budget raises the capex target by 11.1% to rupees 11.11 lakh crore to steer Bharat's economy to the third largest spot. So continued investment on infrastructure. Now, as the Prime Minister led NDA completes 10 years, let's take a quick look at the budgets in the Bharatiya Janata Party led regime and how they were different from those during the UPA regime. First up, let's look at some of the markers. Capital expenditure. Financial year 2014, the budget was 3.92 lakh crore. In 2025, 11.11 crore. Let's look at the next marker. Agriculture budget. 21,933 crore just about 10 years ago. Now it is 1,25,036 crore. Let's look at the CPI inflation, Consumer Price Index. 10% in 2013, down to about 5.65% till November 2023. These are some important markers. Under the UPA, 304.03 billion were the FDI inflows. Now, as per the DPIIT news reports, under PM Modi in the last 10 years, provisional, it's 642.21 billion. That's the number that we are looking at. Under the UPA, financial year 2013-14, it's 6,38,596 crores of the net direct tax collections. That's ballooned to 16,63,686 crore under in the last 10 years under PM Narendra Modi. Under the UPA, 2013-14, 29.17% was the poverty headcount ratio. Now it's down to 11.28% in 2022-23. Now these are all audited numbers and put out numbers that's been put out. We put out the source there too, as far as airports. And as per the Ministry of Civil Aviation, there were 74 airports in 2014. That's nearly doubled to 148 airports across the country. Highways, as per the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, 91,287 kilometers of road, 1,46,145 kilometers of road. Mobile manufacturing. This is data as put out by MyGov. 2 factories in 2014, 200 plus factories in 2023. These are the numbers that we have. Now in such a case, let's go across. We should have a very, very august panel, and it's a straight face-off between Jayant Sinha ji, Chairperson for the Standing Committee on Finance, and also T.S. Singh Dev, the former Deputy Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh. He should be joining us any moment now. Jayant Sinha ji, namaste. Jai Hind. My name is Anand. Thank you very, very much, sir. Good to speak with you after a while. But if you were to pit UPA versus NDA, are these markers enough, or is there more in comparison? Why would the opposition believe that this government is all dressing up and window dressing and not actually doing something concrete for Bharat's economy?
It is a no contest walkover between the NDA government and the UPA. The UPA government inherited an economy in very good shape, growing at 8% a year, with strong investment, very good inflation numbers, very good current account deficit. The economy was in very good shape in 2004. In 2014, when they departed, the economy was in the ditch. Growth was below 5%, inflation was roaring at 10%, current account deficit was over 3 or 4%, the rupee was in trouble. So they really destroyed and damaged the economy. We inherited that economy, an economy that was doing very poorly with a lot of structural problems, a financial system that was collapsing, and we totally repaired all of that. We fixed up the economy, we introduced very major reforms. We managed to get through a once-in-a-century pandemic because of COVID. We're dealing with 2 wars right now, and despite all of that, we have an economy that's growing over 7%. Every macroeconomic parameter is really, really good just now. From a fragile 5 country, we have become a top 5 country in the last 10 years. So as I said, it's a walkover, which is probably what the elections are also going to be between the NDA and the UPA, the Mahagathbandhan, because we have delivered on the ground, we have delivered on every statistic that matters to each and every Indian.
Now, some of the criticisms that's come from the Congress party, that these are the numbers of facts that are being window dressed, Jayant Sinha ji. T.S. Singh Devji should be joining us in the next 2 to 3 minutes. One of the aspects is created the fear of tax terrorism and the ED CBI raids. Now, this is something, and especially on India Inc. So, you've got the private sector running helter-skelter. There's a massive brain drain that has been triggered and they've been forced to move out of India. The other aspect is women have been pushed out of the workforce. The number of employed, unemployed and disguised unemployed, and also the women moving out of the active workforce. These are some very strong criticisms that are coming the government's way from the opposition. More importantly, saying that the government is actually destroying the demographic dividend, not enabling them and skilling them enough.
So Anand, you raised a lot of different points. Let me take them one by one.
Ji.
Your first point was really about the income tax and CBI and
Tax
Enforcement
terrorism,
Directorate and so on. Let me be crystal clear about first the raids, then I'll come to taxes. But as far as the raids are concerned, please recognize that if there is corruption happening in a state that's ruled by the opposition, the police is in their control. Take my own home state of Jharkhand. There's been rampant corruption at levels that you cannot even fathom or imagine. Of course, we all saw the 350 crores of cash that was recovered in Rajya Sabha MP Dheeraj Sahuji's house. So there's rampant corruption going on. But local police, which is under the control of the state government, is going to do nothing. So we have no choice but to ask central agencies like income tax, like CBI, like Enforcement Directorate to go in and stop the corruption, because we have been very clear as a government. The Honorable Prime Minister has said, ki na khaunga, na khane dunga. So whenever we see this kind of rampant corruption, when there's nothing we can do with local police, we have to intervene with these central agencies. And that's essentially what has been happening. So that's point number one. Point number two, regarding your tax terrorism issue, we have streamlined taxation dramatically, and in fact the number of taxpayers has gone up from 3.25 crores to 8.25 crores. It's more than doubled. If you look at the number of people who were paying indirect taxes, that's gone from about 90 lakhs to 1.4 crores. So if there was tax terrorism, why would people be signing up to pay taxes? ईमानदार सरकार है हमारी, इसलिए लोगों को भरोसा है उस पे. That's why they're paying the taxes, and our tax collection has gone up dramatically as a percent of GDP as well. So our tax system is working very well. We've introduced many major reforms like faceless assessment, and just today the Honorable Finance Minister said that all of these very petty disputes, 25,000 rupee disputes, 10,000 rupee disputes, by which 1 crore taxpayers are afflicted, we are going to settle all of that, get rid of all of that. So this is how we've been providing tax relief. This is how we've been enabling people to pay their taxes and get their refunds electronically and very quickly. The people who are complaining about tax rates are the people who are not paying their taxes, and in fact by doing these raids and ensuring compliance, we have in fact increased tax payments even as a percent of GDP. So that was your second point. Your third point is a very important point, and please give me some time to explain that to you. And that is about job creation. And on job creation, you talked about people leaving the country, you talked about women, you talked about young people and so on. But first, when we deal with job creation, let me talk about the fact that one of our 4 pillars is in fact the youth. And by that, of course, we mean not just job creation, but also their education, their training, their skilling, and then of course the job creation. And that job creation is either coming from formal sector jobs, it's coming from startups, or it's coming from self-employment of many different types. So we are looking at providing opportunities for young people across all these different dimensions. We are massively investing in their education and their training. We in fact created a ministry for skill development and entrepreneurship that did not exist. And as a result of that, if you actually look at the numbers, you look at the EPFO data for formal job creation, that is growing very fast. If you look at the data from the PLFS, the Periodic Labour Force Survey, what you find there is unemployment is declining, both urban and rural unemployment. You find that the labour force participation rate is increasing, and also, by the way, women participation in the labour force is also increasing. And by that, you can't just think of somebody going to work in IT services. You also have to recognize that through the Mudra loans, through self-help groups, we have created innumerable opportunities, particularly for women in rural areas, to find employment through rearing goats, through cattle, through self-help groups making food products like papad and achar and so on. These are also ways in which people are getting employed. And if you ask people, as I do all the time in Hazaribagh and my constituency, do you want to leave Hazaribagh and go work in a factory in Bangalore or Himachal Pradesh? Particularly women will say, no, we don't want to do that. We are quite happy with the self-help groups that have been created, the opportunities that have been created in fisheries, in goat rearing, in dairy farming, etc. The cooperatives that are getting formed, and they can thereby earn 8,000, 10,000 rupees a month more and be able to lead a very satisfying, fulfilling life in their own communities. So we have to understand what is happening with employment in a somewhat broader context, as opposed to just cherry picking numbers here and there. Please look at it in its totality.
So if that is the case, then why extend food security for 5 years? If there is employment that's being generated, women are being empowered. So why take this entire, this is a big subsidy. It's a huge cost that the government is undertaking when you say that I'm going to provide food security for 5 years.
Yes, and of course the Food Security Act was brought in by the UPA, and at that point 1 kg of rice was at 5 rupees and so on. Now we made it 0, right? But it was only 5 rupees previously in any case. So we've taken that burden away. And I know this is something the opposition keeps quoting all the time, but there's a very simple reason for doing it, which is that we want to end extreme poverty in India. We want to remove the plight of hunger from our community. Everybody can get free food grains. They can support themselves. And with the free food grains that they're getting right now, this frees up their money for doing things that are, for example, education related or health related, or to be able to invest in getting a goat, for example. So this frees up some of their resources and enables them to consume more, invest more, etc. So if we can provide them this, why wouldn't we want to do that? Number one. Number two, please also remember that we are producing surplus food grains. And if we don't use these food grains, they will rot in our warehouses. Much of it was being spoiled. And so we want to create a system where with good MSP, we buy from our farmers, and then we can give it to our people so that they can eliminate hunger, they can get the support that they need, and they have this social safety net that enables them to lead a better life and to be able to invest in their children's education.
So you want to eradicate extreme poverty. The multidimensional poverty alleviation reports are very, very commendable or congratulatory towards the achievement of this government. But the larger question would be that then what do you really want to keep the spread to nearly 80 crore people? That's the bigger question. So if you're saying out of a population of 140 crore, nearly 80 crore people want to be touched by the food security. So then there seems to be a mismatch. The other aspect is, if people are getting wealthier and there is more money to spend, then FMCGs are posting losses. So why is that happening?
So Anand, just because we're giving 80 crore people free food grains as a social safety net, you should not imagine therefore that poverty is going up, when all the data, whether it's the data from the Niti Aayog, or it's the data from UNDP, or it's the data from the World Bank, all of this data is showing very clearly that we are lifting people out of extreme poverty, and we are giving them decent lives now because we are providing them all of this different support. So extreme poverty is coming down, and in fact when we get to 2047, our goal is that there will be no one in extreme poverty, whether you look at it on a multi-dimensional basis or whether you take the World Bank $2.15 cents a day as the benchmark. In all of those cases, we want to completely end extreme poverty, and the food grains and so on are a good way of ensuring that no one goes hungry at all. And as I said, the money that's freed up because you're not spending it on food grains is money that you can invest in education, you can invest it in your health and improve our human capital.